In our seventh video, we'll look at the themes of joy and celebration at Fezziwig's party, and we'll show how Scrooge is shown how an employer can act. And this is therefore Dickens showing the wealthy elite of Victorian society how they can be good employers in the real world. So the ghost jumps Scrooge forward from his childhood. They left the school behind them into the busy thoroughfares of a city. We are closer to the setting at the start of the story now. Note that repetition of shadowy for that gothic supernatural tone coming back into the story. Despite this and the busyness, the strife, and the tumult, it's like chaos, noise, it is Christmas time. We are still at that festive period, of course, and we have lights in the street, which banishes some of that darkness and gothic nature. Scrooge once again recognises his past. He asks a question, but it's more of an exclamation, especially with this "know it" short sentence here. It is the warehouse where he used to work as an apprentice, and he sees his old employer, Fezziwig. The description of the employer is very comic, is very exaggerated. Just the reaction from Scrooge as well. Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig. It's Fezziwig. Is excitement. He is joyous and excited to see him, which again is quite surprising. Fezziwig is described as small. If he'd been 2 inches taller, he'd have knocked his head against the ceiling. He is comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial. Some very odd descriptive adjectives being used here. He has a capacious waistcoat. He laughs all over. He's a very positive, loving, fun character. Note as well the blessing of his heart. That's a Christian thing, a Christian show of love and affection. He even calls him dear Fezziwig. We have a very positive description of him here. So that is important because again we're seeing Scrooge's change from his cruelty to a loving nature and a respect for somebody. Fezziwig calls out the two apprentices, Dick Wilkins and obviously Ebenezer Scrooge, and declares no more work. No more work tonight, Christmas Eve, which again is very contrasting to Ebenezer, who earlier on was saying to his employee, Bob Cratchit, Christmas Eve, what does it matter? Very distressed that he'd have the day off. So there's a contrast being shown here. He is demanding, but he is positive, joyful, exuberant with it, the opposite of Scrooge. And it shows as well what Scrooge could potentially be, as I mentioned at the start of the video. Then we have the description of the Christmas party, and again Fezziwig described as having wonderful agility despite his odd short nature. He is excited, he is energetic, he is enjoyable. We have a description of it being cleaned. It was done in a minute, everything was sorted out, the party was set up, a long list here, every movable was packed off as it was dismissed for all life. The floor was swept, lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire. Snug, warm, and dry. Nice triple there to show positive. Light again, bright, a ballroom as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. That contrast of brightness and warmth in the winter, which is what Christmas often implies and suggests. Then a very big long description here of the party, and we have lots of positive emotive language and techniques. We have ideas and themes of music and food and celebration and beauty and dancing and all these things that are very positive. We have lots of lists, as well as the lists of what's being done. We get the list of people arriving. And we even have the anaphora here. In came 6 young followers, in came all the young men, in came the housemaid, in came the cook. It goes on for a long time to show this big crowd of celebration, the excitement, the joy. More anaphora repetition. In they all came, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly. This is everyone. This is a whole mixture of people in society, and they're all here to celebrate. There's a great sense of active movement with the verbs and adjectives. There is music, there is dancing, there is warmth, it's hot face, there's an excitement here, and the dancers are so exuberant. Even the fiddler is so excited and exhausted, but he comes back, he continues. There are more dances, there are more forfeits, there are more, lots of repetition. List of food. There is cake, there is negus, which is kind of like a hot punch. types of meat. And again, it shows there's no expense spared here. That Fezziwig doesn't matter about money, doesn't matter about he doesn't worry about money compared to Scrooge. He is giving back to people, and this is something that Scrooge is obviously rejecting in his life at the moment. Um, we have these sort of very positive descriptions earlier on as well. I skimmed past here. Mrs. Fezziwig, the wife of Fezziwig, is one vast, substantial smile. Very positive metaphor there. And then the Fezziwig daughters, beaming, lovable. All very positive, all very loving. Um, the atmosphere is very vivid, it's very imaginative, very descriptive. We even have specific cultural references struck up Sir Roger de Cloverley, which is a type of dance that was popular at the time. And Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig danced to this together. And the description, they were a top couple. Um, doesn't matter who else, no one had no notion of walking, everyone was dancing. But if they'd been twice as many, 4 times, again, a sort of very colloquial style here, Fezziwig would have been a match for them. And Mrs. Fezziwig, they're both great dancers. Again, this sort of storytelling style here, if that's not high praise, tell me higher and I'll use it. It's very colloquial and informal, and that's Dickens using that to connect to the audience. The metaphor of light, again, a positive light issued from Fezziwig's calves. They shone like moons. Another way to describe that sort of positivity. His um, legs appear to wink as well. Again, a sort of almost flirtatious, fun, exaggerated, humorous metaphor there to show his friendliness, his care, his affection for everyone. And it's all over very quickly. And again, you get that sense of pace in that whole, with that list, those long sentences. It's very fast paced, just like the party. Time flies when you're having fun, that sort of idea. And Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually, wishing him or her a Merry Christmas. And to the same to the boys who work there as well. Again, this is friendliness, this is care for everyone. Big contrast to Scrooge, who rejects any sort of friendliness or Merry Christmas celebrations. Despite that, even Scrooge is affected. He acts like a man out of his wits. This is very unsurprising. So surprising for Scrooge. His heart and soul were in the scene and with his former self. He is connecting with who he used to be. A list here again. He remembered everything, enjoyed everything. He underwent the strangest agitation. Even these words, heart and soul, suggest something deeper in Scrooge. The idea that he has a soul, that he has a heart, which is not something that we'd expected from him. He has that sense of humanity. And then the ghost is watching him. He realizes that the ghost is looking full upon him with light upon his head, burned very clear. It's almost like the spirit is monitoring, judging, almost possibly shining a light on Scrooge in his true nature, with this light metaphor shining on him. The ghost then makes a statement. He throws out a statement, a small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude, almost insulting these silly folks. A small matter, just a little bit of money. What a ridiculous situation this is. But Dickens is doing this on purpose. The spirit is mocking the party, so then Scrooge feels compelled to defend Fezziwig. This is the ghost playing devil's advocate, contrasting an opinion to push Scrooge to defend the opposite and reveal something about their true beliefs. Because Scrooge echoes small in shock. The ghost sort of doubles down. Why? He spent but a few pounds. Is that so much he deserves this praise? And to that, Scrooge is heated. He is annoyed. Again, it shows an effect on here. He is becoming aware, and again, speaking like his former, not his latter self. That sort of younger, positive, benevolent nature is coming through. It isn't that spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy. Contrast. To make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Lots of contrast there. His power lies in words and looks, in things slight and insignificant. What then? The happiness he gives is quite as great as if it cost a fortune. Here we have that simile, as great as if it cost a fortune. This is the first indication that Scrooge has shown of him placing emotions above money or above wealth. Then the ghost sort of continues to prod. Well, what's the matter? He's cagey, Scrooge still. Again, he's finding it difficult to fit these new ideas into his worldview. and especially with how he treats people. And here again, that self-realization is he realizes he should treat Bob better. I would like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, and this is very similar to what he said earlier about the boy singing carols outside the window. And this I shall leave for now, because that idea of wealth, especially in him placing wealth above emotions, placing emotions above wealth, is important for the next part of the story, where we'll explore wealth, love, and rejection when Scrooge is shown Belle, his former love.